Welcome to Podcast on TechNation. This is a series of podcasts focused specifically on the biomedical and HTM industry. Episodes will be added monthly. Listening to each episode is eligible for one CE credit from the ACI. At the conclusion of this episode, you'll be able to access a survey that will appear under this episode's title. You'll be able to download your certificate once you submit the survey. Before we begin today's podcast, I'd like to invite you to our fall MD Expo. We will be in Dallas, Texas from November the 10th to the 12th, so please visit mdexposhow.com for event details and registration information. Podcast on TechNation would like to thank our sponsor, Multimedical Systems. Since 1996, Multimedical Systems has provided a comprehensive suite of solutions that help healthcare organizations manage their medical equipment more efficiently, ensuring optimal performance and cost effectiveness. Multimedical Systems specializes in skilled short and long-term temporary biomedical equipment technician staffing, medical device maintenance and repairs, endoscope and surgical repairs, inventory verifications, and certified pre-owned medical equipment sales. Their promise of quality is highlighted by their achievement of the ISO 13485 2016 International Certification by Antivo. For more information, visit multimedicalsystems.com. In this episode, we are joined by Donald Armstrong, Technical Training Manager at Renovo.
Welcome back to HTM Insider. I'm Sherelle with Multimedical Systems, your host. And today I'm so proud to have on my friend, a colleague in the HTM industry. He needs no introduction. You know, he was Educator of the Year for TechNation's Awards, the Wrenchies, for 2025. So proud to have him on. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Don Armstrong. Hi, Don.
Hey, Sherelle, how are you doing?
I'm great. We'd like you to, for those who don't know you or maybe new to the industry, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your career in HTM?
Absolutely. So my name is Don Armstrong. I've been a biomed since I was 22 years old. So I'm 64 years old now. So if you do a little bit of math, I've been doing this for 42 years in all kinds of different positions. As a biomed, as a lead biomed, senior biomed, ultimately as a senior manager of a big in-house program out in Northern California. Been with Renovo for about the last 5 years. The first 2 years as a traveling casual biomed, traveling around the country, filling in for whenever one of our sites was down a man, and I love being a biomed. And the last 3 years, I've been the technical training manager with Renovo Solutions, and it's just been an amazing new position for myself and a new way to impact as many people as I can in the biomed world. And I also teach the Amy's CBET review course with Dave Scott from Colorado. So that's how I got a chance to meet a lot of other people. I think we figured out the other day, we've put through 1,000 people through that CBET review course in the last 5 years.
Wow.
About 250 a year. Yeah. And I don't know how many of those passed, but our numbers are pretty good through that CBET review course.
Awesome.
But, yeah.
And, you know, I love that about you, Don, is the fact that you're training the biomeds in so many arenas. It's not just getting them into the field, it's progression and training. So, folks, today that's what we're going to talk about is really what is training and how you can affect an internal training program like Don has and really make it almost contagious in a way. So, Don, let's talk about that. What does internal HTM training mean to you?
You know, there's all kinds of forms of this of almost every place I've worked at. You know, we get a lot of our training from on the job and, you know, training and learning when we're doing our jobs. You know, we don't really have, other than OEM training, real formal internal training programs. Now, when I joined Renovo Solutions 5 years ago, there was a small kind of homegrown kind of internal training for biomeds that we had built. There was a person that kind of was before me when I got offered the position, and he was transitioning to a new position. He was changing careers. And so at that point, I started really thinking about my past history about being a biomed and changing jobs a few times I did, is how did I really learn how to do my job well at that specific, either location or company. And a lot of it was on the job training by a mentor, by a supervisor, by maybe even an educational person within that department. So I started thinking about Renovo and how can we really impact our technicians internally. Instead of, don't worry about the external OEM training stuff. They could try to get that through the hospitals they work at, through our purchases or whatever it might be traditionally way to get our manufacturing training. But we started putting together, what does an entry level biomed need to know to be an effective biomed? Starting off day one, week one, month one, it falls, other than it falling on to the managers that just hires a brand new entry level biomed, send them to me for like 6 months and I could really train them up, right? You don't come out of the womb being a great biomed. Someone has to train you and teach you how to do it and show you how to be a professional biomed. So we started doing, they came to me and said, how do you want to put this together? And we worked collaboratively with CBEC College, and, to help us get some educational stuff together. I'm a trainer, not an educator. So I'll tell you real honestly about that. So we started putting together, Renovo started putting together a plan to entry level stuff. What does an entry level biomed need to know if they haven't been taught that already? Intro to electronics and intro to anatomy and physiology, and then intro to troubleshooting, all the kind of things that biomed one person should know, right?
Yep.
So we started working with our own company and started saying, how do we do this? How do we recruit? How do we skill match? All the kind of things you could think of. And this is internally just within Renovo, and we've talked about it. I know a lot of other educators in other companies, we're kind of compared some notes. They're doing similar stuff, but I don't think as formal. At least I don't think so, as we are. So we have 5 phases of our internal training program that our technicians could go through. Managers sign them up, identify them, sign them up, and we put them through phase 1 all the way through leadership and management training if they progress along the phases. So we're just trying to build a really good force of biomeds. We have over 300 biomeds, or this. You're part of what we do, and we have 300 anywhere between when I first started, we had about 200 something. I think now we have over 400 or 500 biomeds out in the field. So, and honestly, Sherelle, this has changed the way we think about hiring too.
And you have hit the nail on the head when you say a biomed coming out of school hitting the ground. It is so much when you walk in the doors of that shop. And
Yeah.
the shops are so stressed in many ways across the country to effectively train and grow up that biomed. There's just not the time. There's not time. And
Yeah.
the expectation of them to walk in the door and be efficient is unrealistic.
Absolutely. And what happens is it falls on that manager. A lot of our sites are 2 or 3 or 4 people sites too. So it isn't like there's a whole lot of time to carve away from that one person's time to train that new person. And honestly, Sherelle, our training program, our phase programs are tailored toward they're actually learning as they're working. So
Yes.
if there's a 6-week phase, let's say phase 1 is 6 weeks remote with a 1-week capstone in San Antonio where we do our training center, that week that they're doing that online training, they are actually at work. So they're learning and working as they go. So we're not jeopardizing, we're not taking them away 6 weeks full time and then the 7th week away at a live capstone. We have them train, learn intro to electronics, let's say. We give them a 2-hour lecture, and then say, by the end of this week, we need you to go through all this information, whether it be spot test or some exams or something, and they have access to a lecturer and access to me. And so we put them through that as they're learning, because we want them to still be gaining that on the job experience, right? Because even if they gave them to me for 6 weeks full time, then I send them to, let's say, Mount Sinai, Miami, then they're still walking in the door kind of like, what is this? Where am I? What Don was training me this doesn't fit what that is, but so, then I would expect someone like a manager like Isis on site in Mount Sinai, Miami, then she has to take over. So we're kind of working in conjunction with the sites, with our collaborative partner in the educational world too. And We go from phase one. Once they get out of there, then their manager can reassess and then enroll them in phase two, which is just a little more advanced, right? And then, of course, they can go on to phase three. If they go through all three phases, it takes about 6 months just to get them through phase one, two, and three remotely, and then some hands-on in person. So it makes I think it makes a big difference for our managers and our sites.
I got to tell you, from being retired law enforcement, it sounds a lot like going to an academy
Yeah,
and going through training modules. And I think what you're building is an excellent program that maybe others can adopt in their systems. I know you're open to help with that.
of course. Of course.
I want to talk about, you're not just building skills though, because I see it. You're building
Yeah.
confidence, right?
One of the
The
number
more
one
you
things,
know,
yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
One of the number one things I wanted to say when I started getting managers saying, what's our ROI, or what's our return on me sending my technician for a couple hours a week and then doing online stuff during the week, and then I'm going to lose him for a full week after the seventh week to go away for on. I'm like, listen, what I'm hoping you're going to get back is someone's a little more knowledgeable, hopefully, a lot more engaged in the biomed world. So now they're going to also teach them about accreditation and teach them about communication and teach them about ethics and teach them, just for myself and the other instructors, what it means to be a biomed, right? What it means to get the job done. And then we want to instill confidence in them and show them that, we want to model the way for them, right? We want to encourage the heart. We want to encourage, because Sherelle, if you've got a chance to know me a little bit and know people that I'm around, I'm a lifelong biomed and I love this stuff. And I want them to love it as much as I do. Now, I know that sounds a little pie in the sky, rosy colored glasses or whatever it might be, but and so we try to instill that in them with the instructors we have in San Antonio and myself, and just getting them to think about publishing, think about presenting, think about going to these conferences where maybe they didn't think about that before. And so the confidence part of it is huge, you know. Like I've always said, a lot of the biomeds will tell you that I say this a lot, that two of the best ingredients for a great biomed is confidence and humility. If you can have both of those, that's a great start.
And I think you're teaching them a skill set that retains an employee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people don't leave jobs, they leave workplaces. They
Mm-hmm.
leave when they're
Yeah.
not appreciated, when they're not shown or
Yeah.
given the opportunity to train and to move up in their career. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. How are you preparing them for that opportunity to promote? Because we know if we're training them, they're going to be vested. They're going to
Yeah.
they're going to know that there's going to be something ahead. Now, how are we trying to cycle them up to test, to promote in HTM?
Yeah. So that's a really good. I mean, I don't want to throw out one of my words of wisdom down the road. I know that we're gonna, you like that, and I like that as well. We talk to them a lot about growing their own career and growing where they are. Try to be great where you are. Grow in the plant you're potted at. If you're a biomed one right now, if you're an apprentice, or you're a biomed three going through some of the entry level stuff, because maybe you've been a field service rep for a striker company or a Getting Up or a Steris, where you haven't had the full biomed experience, but you're coming in as a biomed three because that's where we hire you. And then you want to learn what it's like to be a full grown biomed. We tell them how the things to try to promote yourself within the industry, how to grow, how to encourage yourself. Taking certifications, I'm a big time promoter and proponent of certification. The CAB-T is huge. I love the CAB-T. You only have to be a junior in high school to take the CAB-T.
I know, and I think that should be promoted more. I think if we all shout that from the rooftops, I mean, somebody's going to hear it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it the other day because I was talking to some of our technicians. They're like, well, I've only been doing it for a year, and I'm like, all you have to be is a junior in high school. You basically could go home to your niece or your son or daughter or nephew or say, you're a junior in high school. What do you think about this career? Give them a little bit of study material and have them try to take it, right? And I tell our technicians that, be great where you are. Try to communicate as best you can. Don't have it about the money. Don't have it about the position. Have it about the career. Have it about what you want to try to achieve in your career. A lot of them look up to some of the instructors. Oh, I want to be where you are. I'm like, well, you could be there someday. That's the beautiful thing about this career. There's all kinds of avenues. You can go
Right.
into leadership, you could specialize, you can go into field service, you can do all kinds of things, and just got to try to pick what you want to do. And we do a lot of sessions, especially not week-long capsule in person. We have a lot of discussions about how do you communicate what you're doing, right? How do you communicate what you do, period, even within the hospital? You try to have that kind of conversation with them. So I'm a big deal about getting certifications, and I'm a big deal about taking ownership of your own what you're doing in your professional and personal life. You're going to have a lot of decisions to make, and in this competitive world, Sproul, you get somebody trained up and they're doing great. There's a great opportunity; they might go somewhere else.
That's 100% correct. And I cannot stress enough, and I'm sure you do the same, is
Mm-hmm.
when you're getting these certifications, this experience, you need to keep a book that you track everything. You keep it on your
Absolutely.
computer, you keep the hard copies, you keep it all in one place because it's going to matter and you're going to need those. So when you get out the door, start keeping those certificates,
Yeah.
those awards that you get, the mentions, the experience, just keep it all written down because it's going to make your career more valuable next to somebody
Absolutely.
you can't pull all of that up, right, Don?
That's right. I mean, it's one of the guys I think was calling it a love me book. I think it was like his binder where he had everything in his binder, and it's like a real thick binder he's collected over the 25 years with every certification, every kind of going the extra mile award or whatever it might have been. He saved in there, and I think that's a way to go. I still have mine. I still have my Manila envelope with everything I got. I got my wrenchie. I wish I would have thought about bringing it on here, but it's
You know,
the
where
field
is it?
offers you a lot.
Do you keep that wrenchie on a shelf someplace?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I keep it in my
That's
in my home
awesome.
office. My wife and I both work from home, so we've got a really nice home office, and we got that wrenchy in there. And next to my other award, I got one award when I was working in a hospital in New York City. I got single person biomed. I was a biomed program coordinator, single person biomed in a tiny little hospital in Manhattan. I got the Friend of Nursing Award, so I keep that little plastic Friend of Nursing Award, which is a big honor too. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I try to teach our biomeds too that other than the technical stuff we teach them, other than the all the intro level, you could be a great electronics technician, you could know everything about anatomy and physiology. This is about relationships, man. If you could build those relationships and you can have those kind of things built into what you do, and someone could give you the freedom to know that that's part of it, versus you
Yeah,
just got to be a technician and a wizard, to know that you could go up and actually be friendly and have relationships with people in the floors, and administrators, nurses, even patients. I tell them
yeah.
you could say good morning to someone. It's okay. you know, you're not overstepping your bounds.
Dave Scott, I need to have him on this podcast. But I'm really big on soft skills.
Oh,
If you can't communicate, it makes everyone's job harder. But for those who maybe are very technical and they don't have the soft skills, wear that cape when you walk in the door because you are a superhero. Get on
yeah,
stage.
yeah. And you know,
Walk into the OR and introduce yourself.
yeah. And I'm an
What
old
do they
OR
call
guy.
you?
Yeah, and I'm an old 30 year plus OR guy. So I know, we tell people that humility and confidence, people could see that. You walk
Mm-hmm.
into an OR not knowing, and that's okay not to know. That's where the humility falls into. The
Yeah.
confidence, you walk in and they go, "Oh, it's Donnie. He knows what's going on." Versus, but Donnie also knows that I might not know something.
Yep.
So we really encourage. And one of the phrases I tell our technicians, newer technicians, is about being a little bit introverted and not knowing what to say when you go up there, or being extroverted but not knowing how to control that also, which is my problem. Um, when you get a call and you don't know what to do, you just walk up and say, "Hey, I'm Don from Vomit. What can I do to help?" That's it. That's your the whole. That's how you answer every call. And if that's your job, if you could help in any way, because there's 44,000 or so make models in our database, nobody knows everything.
Yeah.
So how do but you can help. Yeah,
Yep.
and you can find out exactly.
Exactly.
So, and I spend probably an inordinate amount of time trying to push that idea through to them, because I want them to feel comfortable and confident about what they're actually asked to do. They're not asked to be a genius. They're asked to go up there and help have some background, have that kind of troubleshooting mentality, and have that kind of way to see things, and to go up and give our clinical partners a break and say, I'm here to help you. What is it? And my wife's been nurse, so maybe that might come from that too. So, you know, that's all she ever wanted from a biomed, was someone to come up and help her out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I know something that you take very seriously too is we have to remember when we're bringing in new people to our shop, not everyone's a trainer. Not everyone is the
Yeah.
right fit for that, right? And we're pushing people I see into she's gonna shadow you today or this week.
Yeah.
If they don't have the passion and the energy to train, they don't have good communication skills, they might not be the right fit. So can you talk about that a little bit more too?
Yeah. And that's a really good point, because a lot of people want to really, I don't know, focus on the job training. If we send someone to OEM training, then they're expected to come back and then train our people that are working around them or with them on that same device. And my pushback on that has always been, how do you know that person is a good trainer, and how do you know that that person's really teaching that person the right way? Because yeah, it does take a certain type of person that wants to mentor and train and bring people up. And a lot of people sometimes some of the best technicians that are great at what they do aren't great trainers or aren't great teachers, because they just basically say, "Watch me," and then do what I do, as opposed
Yeah.
to having you teach you how to do it. And I think that's why I was very lucky to find this role, because I do focus on my soft skills, and I've been a technician forever. I know how to make things go. But what I like to do more than anything else is lift people up and have them, find their way. So it's not easy. It's not easy. And when I'm in class, when I teach our technicians, even I have them identify who wants to be like a trainer, who really wants to mentor, who wants to go into leadership, because we can identify that now, and then we can maybe foster that. So yeah, it isn't for everybody. And that's why a lot of biomed ones and entry level biomeds get left behind. That's why a lot of managers struggle. New managers struggle because there's really no one to show them and train them how to do it, because a lot of our managers have been stuck in an office for a lot of years, and they don't know how. There's really no succession training for who's next, you know.
Me to bring up, you know, across our industry, we try to standardize BMET 1, BMET 2, BMET 3s,
Yeah.
but it's all still very different. Um, and how do you know where someone's at, where they need to be at to train and move on in their career? I think identifying that is very important to encourage advancement, but how do you meet them where they're at?
Probably one of the hardest questions we could really try to tackle, right? I mean, that's a hard one. Matchings, and we're lucky we get to train people, kind of customize our training in certain buckets, like 1, 2, 3, leadership management, phase connect, which is our new one, which is a networking and communication ethics course we put together. So right now we're having, luckily enough, I get them on a phase on board call once a month, so I could kind of go through and see and listen to and talk to, do my presentation of onboarding our new biomeds, and have conversations with them. I could see you're a biomed too, and I could see if you're getting it or not. A lot of times it still falls onto the manager with the old standard technical competency sheets and forms that we have over all these years. We're trying to do a little bit different. Renovo's trying to do a little bit different with that, with have some technical competencies. Of course, line items. There might be 60 or 70 technical competencies, but we may have some questions around them. As opposed to you're a 1 through a 5. One, you barely know what 5, you can teach it. Say if you classify yourself at a certain rate, maybe we might ask you a question, might trigger a question or two about that skill. So it is very difficult to do this. This part of it's the hardest part, I would think. Coming from a couple of big in-house programs, we got to know the people pretty personally right away. But coming from where I sit now, like I say, anywhere between 3 to 500 bombers, depending on where you're looking. How do I know that this new hire that comes out in Ohio was a bomber, the one they just hired? How do I know where to place them in say, our training, our phases? If they're coming in as a bomber one, or like an experienced 1 or 2, maybe they don't need to go through the phase 1 course, which is all intro level stuff. They graduated from a biomed college, CBAT or Texas U or SCIT out in California. If they've come through one of those biomed programs, we probably don't need to put them through phase one because they've done that already. And they should let us know that. They will let us know that. Then we try to place them in 2, 3, or more of the advanced courses. But yeah, that's the difficult part of it. It really is. I wish I had a really wish I had an answer for that one. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one, and I think finding so as we have attrition through retirement, and you understand the age gap that we have currently in HTM, when you're in need of specialized training, and we know how hard it is to get into some of these OAM schools,
Yeah.
and the
Mm-hmm.
cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a factor for a lot of facilities out there. How do you find that specified labor? How do you fill that skill gap when you're missing? You no longer have an anesthesia tech. You had one anesthesia tech, and he or she left.
Yeah. Well, at that point, especially like anesthesia or respiratory or things like that, and we're starting to get into imaging. We could home grow as much as we can. Like right now, I don't have a specific anesthesia course or respiratory course. We're still depending on the OEMs for that. But we have about 3 or 4 traveling specialists within our company that go around and do that kind of work. But that's complicated as well, and hopefully each site working with, of course we're ISO, so we're third party, we're contracted in most of these hospitals. And a lot of times the hospitals themselves will actually help us broker those OEM training courses, where a lot of times they don't like to train us. Just be real honest. Sometimes one of the manufacturers might say, we're not going to train Lenovo because you're a competition of ours. If we train you, then we don't get the service contract, versus maybe going through the organization that we have to contract with helps. But yeah, that's a complicated issue for us across the board. And right now we're really focusing on home growing our own biomed fleet, and we'll have to get in that specialization part of it, one day or sooner than later, put it that way. We're working on that with our imaging folks now, to try to build in some homegrown training for that, because like hiring entry-level biomeds is difficult. Hiring trained imaging people is difficult too. So yeah,
It's a balance, right? It's a delicate balance.
it is. It really is. And the age gap and the people are retiring out of the field. I mean, I'm 64 and I'm still going strong. And I know a lot of people that are my age that are still going strong and still love the industry. But looking about promoting and moving through the traditional 1, 2, 3 and all that kind of phases. I mean, Renovo's done a really good job of looking at that and saying, what does it mean to progress from a 1 to a 2 to a 3 to maybe a lead supervisor manager type of thing? And the old traditional, I've been a strong proponent of this all my whole career, is you can't basically tell a brand new biomed that you're not even going to be considered for next promotion for like 4 to 8 years. Biomed 2 has to have at least 4 to 6 years experience. Who's going to stick around for that? And then the next level up, another 4. So you're not going to be a biomed 3 for 12, anywhere between 8 years. I'm like, it has to be more balanced. It has to be more performance based. It has to be more what they're actually doing day to day. So Renovo's done a really good job about looking how to work on that to make that more realistic within our groups, because let's face it, we have several hundred sites across the country, and some of these sites are very hard to staff. Specialists are not. I mean, it's just hard enough to staff somebody in a site that may be 250 miles out of the nearest city, and it's hard. They're hiring deserts, So we've been really lucky, Cheryl. I mean, I got to tell you, some of our biggest success stories have been in like a very rural hospital. We had one biomed and they were looking for a second biomed, where the one biomed knew somebody that he had welded with or maybe even gamed with, on the video games. And he said, I know this person. I bet he'd be really good at this. So we're like, well, let's bring him in and talk to him. We have our VPs, our managers talk to them, and like, really good guy, good background, right? Good background checks, being that we have our probationary period anyways. And they could send them to me, and I could evaluate them and put them through all of our phase training. It's changed the way we could hire. It's opened that up. This from doing this for a while, and I've been doing this for a long time. That entry point was very, very rigid to try to get new people in the field. And it's changing. Thank goodness.
I see it.
Yeah.
One term that I hear you use that I love is micro learning.
Yeah.
Can you explain what micro learning is to Don
Well, and,
Armstrong?
and without getting too technical about it, it's, we basically just try to break all of our phases down into where they can actually learn something and feel like they've accomplished something, and then move on to the next little thing, as opposed to just throwing our first original attempt at this 5 or 6 years ago. We just basically opened up the fire hose on them and just like shot everything we can at them for a couple of weeks, and they would basically walked away almost more confused than they did coming in. So we want to keep our learnings kind of really specific, really small, really short, and let them kind of, that's how adults learn anyways. Adults
That's
aren't like, you're not going to school full time with a book and writing 500-page essays. We want to teach you how to do some of this just quick, understand it, move on with your life. Let's go. So it's been, and it's one of the things I've worked on. I had to learn myself because, I've come from the old school way of learning and training, and to train like this way makes it a lot better for us. So yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because it is something we try to focus on, because we want small victories and small accomplishments, and they build onto something big, because they're not going to learn everything. They're not going to have everything down in several months. They're going to get a few things down and then let it build on itself, because that's what we really want to happen. And that's the best way to learn.
thing is short.
Huh?
Everything's TikTok.
Yeah.
No more than
Oh,
five paragraphs in an email, right? We want it
abs-
instantaneously.
absolutely. And some of them
So
take to it
yeah.
better than, but that's just the way of adult learning. That's the kind of thing I had to learn about the training, education, adult learning. Because I mean, I didn't get even my bachelor's degree till way later on in life, and it was different than when I was going to get my associates in electronics. It was more, the brick and mortar school lab essays writing. Where now we can do it a lot differently. Kind of meet them where they are.
Well, gosh, it's been great having you on. I could talk to you all day long. I
Oh,
love what you're
you too.
doing. You're inspiring to the industry, and it was shown how much you're
Oh, jeez.
appreciated in what you're doing by winning the Renchi for Educator of the Year. So proud of you, my friend.
Well, that was
So
that was a
before,
Renovo gig, because I got nominated by my director Dan Adams, and he nominated me. And that once that got through, then it was a voting situation, and there's a lot of people with the Amy Seabrook review course, with all of the people we touch at Renovo. I'm not going to say that the voting was. I'm glad that was a vote, not on merit, but on voting. So no, it was a
well,
huge honor.
it's well deserved. I'll say that.
Thank you so much.
We always close every episode of HTM Insider with your wow, your word of wisdom or
Right.
your words of wisdom. So I'm ready for it, Don. Hit me with it.
Okay, here's my words of wisdom that I talk to our technicians all the time about is you have to own your own career. You do. You have to own it yourself. Don't depend on your manager, your company, your hospital to they're where you work, but you're talking about that book of your certifications and your diplomas and everything you have, everything you've accomplished. That's yours. You got to take that with you. If you're looking to move up or try to promote yourself, there's no reason you can't go out and get certifications. There's no reason you can't take those exams. There's no reason you can't study a little bit on your own. If you want this to be a 9 to 5 job, that's fine. There's a lot of 9 to 5ers out there, and I have nothing but respect because it is a trying job. But if you want this to be your career, then you take it, you run with it, and you do what you got to do. I have a lot of them, our technicians now that have sadly, not sadly, I mean, I'm not sad about it. They've left the company and went on to other organizations or other promoted positions, and I'm happy for them. I promote everybody in this field to do the best they can and doing their own career. Be selfish for me to hypocritical and selfish for me to say you have to stay here. I don't care. I'm like, no, you grow, man. Grow on your own. It's a lesson you have to learn. I mean, and I had to learn it myself. I was at Stanford for 20 plus years as a younger guy. My first Bama job all the way till 2009. This is from 84 to 2009. And my wife's a nurse, and she got an opportunity to get a big promotion in New York City. So I had to leave my job, which I thought I was going to retire at 50 years of service. Thought I was going to be the guy walking up there, 50 years of bomb at Don Armstrong. And I had to all of a sudden move. Leave my job that I had and loved. And then I had the realization was I don't know anybody. outside of this hospital, and so the whole networking thing really started having to come into play, and the whole find a way to promote yourself and to lift yourself up a little bit. So my words of wisdom are, keep your resume up to date, do everything you can to promote yourself. Don't feel bad about spending a couple hours every now and again on your own time to promote, to grow. Join biomed associations, join AMI, go to MD Expo. All those things make you step. They're little tiny steps forward, right? Those little tiny steps forward are what makes it all worthwhile.
100%. I'm going to say this, Don. I believe this wholeheartedly. Your choices and your experiences make you.
Yeah.
So when you take
Wow.
both of those, and every time you look at something to say yes, or should I try it, or
Hmm.
no, maybe it's not for me, that decision is going to shape you. So
Yeah,
grab
absolutely.
all the experiences that you can and be the best you.
I absolutely agree with you completely. I mean, that's why I say, even if people are really perseverating about a decision they're going to make, I'm like, well, what's the worst that can happen? And if
Yep.
nothing's permanent, you can always, I don't, maybe not come back, but you always leave something better than you found it. And if you needed to come back, we've had people leave our company that have come back. I've gone back to hospitals before that I worked at, that I 6 or 7 years later went back and applied and said, I really want to come back. And, I was lucky enough to do it. So, but yeah, own your own career. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that in you want to do what you got to do.
Yep. I agree. Well, it was great talking to you, Don. And listeners, I want you to remember that if you are a CBET and you listen through TechNation, every episode of HTM Insider is worth one CE credit.
Ah,
So there's 40-ish of them out there now. So if you need CE credits, you
there
tune
you
in
go.
through TechNation and you'll get one for every episode. But you can also find us and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple
Yeah,
Music, any place
love
you
it.
can get a podcast. And I know that if you want help, if you have a question, whether it be education or your own career, you can reach out to Don, and I know he will
Absolutely.
joyfully help you.
Absolutely. I'd give my email address if it was okay, but I'll let you tell me if that's
Well,
okay or not.
yeah, sure. Give your email address. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
my email address is darmstrong@renovo1.com. I'd be happy to, if you want to send me an email, I have a question, if something I went over today touched you or not. Again, darmstrong@renovo1.com, which is a typical Renovo email address.
Perfect. Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of HTM Insider, and we will see you next month with a new episode. Thanks again, Don.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's been an honor.
Thank you for a great presentation. If you enjoyed today's episode, you might enjoy our ongoing webinar series, Webinar Wednesday. You can find a calendar of upcoming live webinars, as well as an archive of on-demand webinars at webinarwednesday.live. To obtain your certificate for 1 CE credit from the ACI, please remember to complete and submit the survey located below the podcast title. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com.